guess it's up here. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. We appreciate you coming. And I'm going to get it started off with a little prayer. Father God, we thank you for your grace, your mercy, and your favor, Father. We thank you for the blessings you have stored upon our church, Lord. The director, Sister Danielle, Father, that's going to put on this program and ministry tonight, Father. We ask that you protect all the kids, Lord, and give them an understanding of what they're doing, understanding of history, and know that God is still in control of whatever goes on in their life from the beginning of our history to now, Father. We ask that you bless each and every one of them and let them learn everything they need to learn. And the families that are here, we want to thank you, Father, for bringing them here safe and take them home safe also. In Jesus' name we thank you. Amen.
The history and treatment of African Americans that still affect us today on many levels. We have some amazing participation in today's unique presentation. They are Anointed Word Family Worship Center, Youth Empowerment Project, and New Journey Youth Center. Please stand for the Negro National Anthem and remain standing.
Let it resound, all as a
Please remain standing. Turn to the back of the church for the king and queen. You may now be seated.
I am who God says I am. I am truth, support, compassion, and encouragement. I am grateful to the names past, present, future, known, and unknown. With humanity, I must honor some iconic women who have made some powerful moves, who have inspired me, strengthened me, elevated me. Thank you, T.R. Robinson, my mom. First Lady Jennifer Cobb, Sojourner Truth, Madam C.J. Walker, Tina Hunter, Bessie Coleman, Cicely Tyson, Tasha Hunter, Angela Davis, and Danielle Yarbrough. They represent strength and encourage. When I say their names, you show gratitude that you did not arrive in this place on your own. Oh, you had help. They paved the way. You had strength. You had courage. So when they tell you that you are not good enough, you tell them, not only am I good enough, I am more than enough. When they tell you send her home, tell them I am home. My people paved the way for this country through blood, sweat, and tears. We are home. When they tell you that you are angry or have attitude, you tell them I am mistaken, unwavering, staying firm in my truth. When they tell you that you are not beautiful, you tell them I am beautiful. I am descendants of royalty. You are beautiful, queen. So sister, we have much work to do, and together we are unstoppable. Always remember your voices are the ones you hold individually and collectively. It does matter. Now is not the time to be silent. Know your worth in God. Pursue it relentlessly, passionately, and loudly. We are queens.
My heritage is God-given and made of strength. My mental capacity has no length of which it can be measured or restrained. For the blind are the only ones restricted by pain, fame, and worldly material gain. It will present deception of a false power cycle and try to tag me with the blame. Yes, 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 I am a king. Hear me when I say that I am a symbol of knowledge that is evolving into walking wisdom. I will be the ruler of my kingdom and my community. Yes, 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 I am the power that was created in his image and cannot be destroyed. Because of the foundation I'll leave for another prince and his children, they will teach and be innovative. I am not ordinary. I'm historic, heroic, and a game changer. I'm often feared because of their lack of understanding. I am imitated but never duplicated, which is why they hate me, frisk me, try me, but can't deny me. I see through their hate and misguided anger. I am not ignorant to that truth. I'm hated because of my African roots. In spite of their shortcomings and identity issues, I will soar, I will learn, I will teach, I will be wise, I will build, I will own, I will conquer, I will love my wife, children, family, neighbors, and enemies. No matter what obstacles are put before me, I will dominate and have dominion without the world's permission. And most importantly, I will seek God's guidance in all things, which is why I will be victorious. I am a king.
Please stand while they exit.
Slavery, the treatment of human beings as property, deprived of personal rights, has occurred in many forms throughout the world. But one institution stands out for both its global scale and its lasting legacy. The Atlantic slave trade, occurring from the late 15th to the mid-19th century and spanning 3 continents, forcibly brought more than 10 million Africans to the Americas. The impact it would leave affected not only these slaves and their descendants, but the economies and histories of large parts of the world. There had been centuries of contact between Europe and Africa via the Mediterranean, but the Atlantic slave trade began in the late 1400s with Portuguese colonies in West Africa and Spanish settlement of the Americas shortly after. The crops grown in the new colonies, sugarcane, tobacco, and cotton, were labor-intensive, and there were not enough settlers or indentured servants to cultivate all the new land. American natives were enslaved, but many died from new diseases, while others effectively resisted. And so, to meet the massive demand for labor, the Europeans looked to Africa. African slavery had existed for centuries in various forms. Some slaves were indentured servants, with a limited term and the chance to buy one's freedom. Others were more like European serfs. In some societies, slaves could be part of a master's family, own land, and even rise to positions of power. But when white captains came offering manufactured goods, weapons, and rum for slaves, African kings and merchants had little reason to hesitate. They viewed the people they sold not as fellow Africans, but criminals, debtors, or prisoners of war from rival tribes. By selling them, kings enriched their own realms and strengthened them against neighboring enemies. African kingdoms prospered from the slave trade, but meeting the Europeans' massive demand created intense competition. Slavery replaced other criminal sentences, and capturing slaves became a motivation for war rather than its result. To defend themselves from slave raids, neighboring kingdoms needed European firearms, which they also bought with slaves. The slave trade had become an arms race, altering societies and economies across the continent. As for the slaves themselves, they faced unimaginable brutality. After being marched to slave forts on the coast, shaved to prevent lice, and branded, they were loaded onto ships bound for the Americas. About 20% of them would never see land again. Most captains of the day were tight packers, cramming as many men as possible below deck. While the lack of sanitation caused many to die of disease and others were thrown overboard for being sick or as discipline, the captains ensured their profits by cutting off slaves' ears as proof of purchase. Some captives took matters into their own hands. Many inland Africans had never seen whites before and thought them to be cannibals, constantly taking people away and returning for more. Afraid of being eaten, or just to avoid further suffering, they committed suicide or starved themselves, believing that in death their souls would return home. Those who survived were completely dehumanized, treated as mere cargo. Women and children were kept above deck and abused by the crew, while the men were made to perform dances in order to keep them exercised and curb rebellion. What happened to those Africans who reached the New World, and how the legacy of slavery still affects their descendants today, is fairly well known. But what is not often discussed is the effect that the Atlantic slave trade had on Africa's future. Not only did the continent lose tens of millions of its able-bodied population, but because most of the slaves taken were men, the long-term demographic effect was even greater. When the slave trade was finally outlawed in the Americas and Europe, the African kingdoms whose economies it had come to dominate collapsed, leaving them open to conquest and colonization. And the increased competition and influx of European weapons fueled warfare and instability that continues to this day. The Atlantic slave trade also contributed to the development of racist ideology. Most African slavery had no deeper reason than legal punishment or intertribal warfare, but the Europeans who preached a universal religion and who had long ago outlawed enslaving fellow Christians needed justification for a practice so obviously at odds with their ideals of equality. So they claimed that Africans were biologically inferior and destined to be slaves, making great efforts to justify this theory. Thus, slavery in Europe and the Americas acquired a racial basis, making it impossible for slaves and their future descendants to attain equal status in society. In all of these ways, the Atlantic slave trade was an injustice on a massive scale, whose impact has continued long after its abolition.
Tonight, you will see our history over the years and how we have influenced so many generations. Although the deck has been stacked against us, We are overcomers. Now, let me introduce you to Mr. Henry Box Brown.
After his family was taken away and sold, Henry Box Brown was devastated. Henry decided that he needed to escape from slavery. Henry thought through all the options of escape, but decided that they are all too risky. So Henry decided to create his own method of escape. Henry Box Brown mailed himself from Richmond, Virginia to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He paid $86 for a small crate in which to mail himself. After a grueling journey of 27 hours in a small crate, Henry Box Brown landed safely in the hands of friendly abolitionists. Henry, now saved from slavery, became a well-known anti-slavery speaker and a writer. Henry's daring escape is much like that of Harriet Tubman, who daringly helped many slaves escape slavery. Overall, Henry Box Brown was a very creative man. The end.
Professor Cleveland and William Still, here is our special box.
Yes, I'm glad he made it. I pray he is okay.
Henry, are you okay?
Yes. How do you do, gentlemen?
Tell us again how you plan this escape.
Well, after my wife and children were sold to another plantation in North Carolina, I pleaded with my master to buy her back. I was unsuccessful and knew I would never see them again. I had nothing else to lose. So I began to plan on how I could escape myself to freedom. I poured acid on my hand to give my master a reason for me to heal, to give me a reason to heal for a few days. I still didn't know how I was going to escape myself to freedom in the box. So I prayed, and God gave me the idea to mail myself to freedom in a box. With the help of a friend and God's instructions, it was done.
How long did it take?
27 long hours. I went from a steamboat, carriage, train, and finally a wagon. At one point, my box got turned upside down.
Upside down?
About in 1.5 hours. Even though it was marked this side up, I felt like my eyes were going to come out of their sockets. I thought I was going to die. Then the box got turned right side up. Not much longer after that, I was delivered to you in Philadelphia. Thank God I'm free.
Well, Henry, we're glad that you made it here safely. Your story is very unique, important, should be told, and never forgotten.
Come on, gentlemen, we have work to do.
Now we will have the famous Frederica Washington, Josiah Henson, Harry T. Moore, and Dory Miller.
I, Frederica Caroline Freddie Washington, was born in Savannah, Georgia in 1903. I died in Stamford, Connecticut in 1994 of a stroke at the age of 90. I was a pioneering African-American actress with fair skin and green eyes. Both of my parents were African-American and European race. I began my career at the Cotton Club in Harlem during the 1920s. My talent was often overlooked because people's obsession with my race and color. I was a tragic victim of racial stereotypes, fears, and prejudices. After dancing in London, UK, 1928, I appeared in Black and Tan, a short film featuring Duke Ellington and his orchestra in 1929. And moved on to a career in motion pictures. I am most famous for my portrayal of Paola. In motion pictures Imitation of Life. Paola, a light-skinned young African-American woman who chooses to pass as white in order to escape racial discrimination. In Hollywood, I was urged to pass fully white by studio heads, who said they would make me a bigger star than Joan Crawford and Greta Garbo. Because I refused to compromise my identity, I was unable to develop a career as a serious Black actress, just because I refused to pretend to be white. I also couldn't get many Black roles because my skin was too light. One of the roles that I did land on was Emperor Jones. In that film, my skin was darkened. I never made it up to top like Eldest Waters or Josephine Baker because I didn't look Black enough. I am most proud of my work as an actress and journalist in the fields of Black performers' rights. I was the head of the Negro Actors Guild, helping Black performers get a fair chance in the entertainment industry. I told reporters in 1949 that I am a talented Black actress. Firstly, I'm a talented Black actress because I'm honest, firstly, and secondly. You don't have to be only white to be a good actress. I spent most of my life trying to prove those otherwise. I am a Negro and I am proud of that. 1975, 40 years after making an impression for my role, I was finally inducted when I was into America's Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame. I am Freddie Washington.
I was born June the 5th, 1789, on a plantation owned by Francis Newman in Port Tobacco, Maryland, which is in the county of Charles. As a young boy growing up on a plantation, there are things that I could not understand. One thing was, in this plantation that I was on, there was a pole in the middle of the plantation. I didn't know what it was for until one day that it was shown to me what it was for. One day while my dad and some other men were out in the field, we heard a lady screaming off in the distance. My dad ran to see what was going on and found out that it was my mom being held down by a white overseer. My dad pushed the overseer off of my mom and started beating him. Shortly after that, my dad was brought to the pole that was in the middle of the plantation in shackles and handcuffed stripped down to his pants and chained to the pole, where the blacksmith lashed my dad 100 times. After that, they cut my dad's ear off and nailed it to the pole. After that, my dad was sold to a plantation owner in Montgomery County. After that, my mom and I were part of another plantation, and along with my sisters and my other brother, we were sold because the plantation owner that we were a part of fell on hard times. My mom begged the plantation owner to keep us together, but that didn't work. My brothers and sisters were sold. I never saw them again. After my mom tried to get the plantation owner to keep me and her together, that didn't work, and I was sold off to another plantation owner. But I got sick, and the plantation owner looked at me as being damaged goods. So he and the plantation owner that owned my mom got together, and I was sold back to him where me and my mom were together. Hard times hit our plantation owner again, and we moved to Kentucky. When we moved to Kentucky, I began to listen to my mom because my mom was a prayerful lady, and she started talking, praying to God, a God that I didn't know anything about. And as she prayed, it got into me, and I became a Methodist minister. Being a minister up in Kentucky, I was allowed to travel and travel and travel. But in the back of my mind, I wanted to be free. So while in Kentucky, I got with some white plantation owners and friends of my mom. And there was a $450 fee for me to be free. So what I did, I went back to my first plantation owner, Mr. Riley, with $350, gave him that. And me knowing, hey, I got a $100 balance, so I could be free. When I came back to him, he had changed that $100 to $1,000. And I looked at him and just told him, I said, Mr. Riley, you know my balance for freedom was $100. And he looked at me in my eyes and said, until you bring me $1,000, boy, you will always be my boy. When he said that, I just shook my head in disbelief and walked, got back on the horse, rode back to Kentucky. But while I was riding back to Kentucky, it gave me a lot of time to think. I'd been hearing about the Underground Railroad and what Harriet Tubman had been doing. So I got with my wife. I said, let's get our children together, and anybody else that wants to get on this railroad, let's go to Canada, because that's where the trail was leading to Canada. So we ended up in Canada, and in Canada, we established what is known as the Don Settlement. At the time, it had less than 200 freed slaves, but during my time in Canada, I made trips from Canada back to the United States to free other slaves. In 1852, a young lady named Harriet Stowe wrote a novel called Uncle Tom's Cabin. Her novel depicted my life as a slave, a minister, an abolitionist, and to this day, people can sometimes look at this story and they'll know what conditions slaves lived under. I am Josiah Henson.
I am Harry T. Moore. I was born November 18, 1905 in Houston, Florida, where my father was a farmer and store owner. My mother was an insurance agent. I graduated from Florida Memorial College in 1924 at the age of 19. Later, I moved to Cocoa, Florida, where I taught in the public school system. There, I saw that separate but equal was not true for the black students. In 1926, I married Harriet Sims. She also became a teacher in the public school system. In 1934, I joined the NAACP and became president of the Brevard County branch. In 1938, I supported a teacher who filed a lawsuit for unequal pay based on race. Thurgood Marshall also argued the case. In 1944, I helped over 100,000 black people join the Florida Democratic Party. Being an activist has its price, and the price was my wife and I lost our jobs with the public school system. Christmas Eve, 1951, my wife and I were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary when a bomb planted by the KKK exploded. Despite there being immediate hospitals in the area, I was driven 30 miles away to Sanford, Florida, because the nearest one didn't accept black patients. I died before I reached the hospital. My wife died a few days later. No one was ever convicted of our murders. I am Harry T. Moore.
I was born October 12, 1919 in Waco, Texas. As a young boy, I learned how to cook, do laundry, as well as working on the family farm. In high school, I played fullback on the high school football team. I was nicknamed the Raging Bull because I got into a lot of fights strictly because of my race. Shortly before my 20th birthday, I enlisted into the U.S. Navy, where I became a mess attendant 3rd class. When it was open to Negro Americans. Following my training, I was assigned to the ammunition ship Pyro. On January 2nd, 1940, I was transferred to the battleship West Virginia, where I became head cook. On December 7th, 1941, after doing my morning duties, the first of 9 torpedoes hit my ship. Shortly after, I manned a 50 caliber anti-aircraft machine gun, where I shot down at least 3 to 4 Japanese airplanes. Later, I helped carry the injured to safety. I also trained in Hawaii on the Liscombe Bay ship, which was a part of the Battle of Macon in 1942. On November 24, 1943, a Japanese torpedo hit and sunk my ship. Only 272 of my 900 shipmates survived. I died in this attack. While in the Navy, I was awarded the Navy Cross, and due to my bravery, I was awarded the Purple Heart in 1942. And a press release of Dr. Martin Luther King Celebration Day, January 19, 2020, the Navy will name an aircraft carrier after me, the CVN-81B Dory Miller. I am Dory Miller.
Here are the Groveland Four.
Long day in court. Good afternoon, Apaka. On July 16, 1949, Ernest Thomas Charles Green, being only 16 years old, Samuel Shepard and Walter Irvin, was accused of raping a 17-year-old white girl, Norma Petty, and assaulting her husband at gunpoint. The sheriff posse went after them January the 26th and ran across Ernest Thomas and killed him, shot him on the spot. The other three was arrested, taken in, beaten, coerced, until confession. However, Irvin refused to confess. They went to trial for the rape and was sentenced. Well, let me get back. The three survivors went to trial and was convicted by an all-white jury. Greenlee was sentenced to life because he was a minor. The other two were sentenced to death. Now, with Henry Moore and myself, Thurgood Marshall, being the lead counsel, through the Supreme Court, they was able to get another trial. In the custody of Sheriff Willis Virgil McCall, on their way to the trial, Irvin and Shepard was shot. McCall said it was in self-defense. Irvin died on the spot. I got that wrong? Shepard. Shepard died on the spot. Apologize. Irvin survived his serious wounds and was able to tell the FBI exactly what happened, that they were shot in cold blood. At the second trial, represented by myself, Thurgood Marshall, once again convicted by an all-white jury and sentenced to death, was Irvin. In 1955, his sentence was commuted to life by the Governor Leroy Collins. In 1968, he was paroled but died in 1969 with his family by natural causes. Greenlee was paroled in 1962, and he lived with his family until he died in 2012. In 2016, the city of Groveland and Lake County each apologized to the families of these four men for the injustice committed against them. They were exonerated in April of 2017. And later that year, Governor Rick Scott officially pardoned the men. On January 11, 2019, the Florida Board of Executive Clemency voted to pardon the Grover Four, and Governor Ron DeSantis subsequently did so, the Groveland Four.
I am Ernest Thomas.
I am Charles Greenlee.
I am Samuel Shepard.
I am Walter Irvin.
So we're gonna do a little trivia. Who all likes trivia in here? Raise your hand. Who all think they know a lot about Black history? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. All right, I want to see the same number of hands up when I ask these questions, right? All right. How about we make it even funner? How about the children against the adults? All right, let's see. All right, so when I ask the question, please raise your hand and wait till you are called to answer the question. Thank you. All right, first question is, what was the name of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s father's church? Young man back here in the hat. Oh, put all your phones away. No cheating. No cheating. No cheating. Young people, use your brains. No cheating. No cheating.
The South Bishop Church.
Say that again.
The South Bishop Church.
Incorrect. An adult wants to try. This young lady, there, right here in the green. Right here.
Would that be Ebenezer Baptist Church?
Who wants to keep score? All right, so adults 1, youth 0. All right, our next question. What group launched the Freedom Rides in 1961? Is that Hunter? Oh, no, that young man right there in the black shirt.
Dr. Martin Luther King.
Incorrect. Would an adult like to try? Would an adult like to try? What group launched the Freedom Rides in 1961? We have an adult back here. That means y'all can't play with y'all group. Y'all can't play with y'all young people. Y'all gotta be with the adults.
Is it the Freedom Riders?
No. Would another youth like to try?
What group of people?
What? The question is, what group launched the Freedom Riders in 1961?
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna see if an adult, Mama T up here says she know the answer. No youth, no more youth, they had a chance. Up here.
The Black Panthers.
Oh, that is an adult back there. I'm sorry, Miss Janet, I ain't see you. No, ma'am. All right, so the answer is...
Got somebody in the balcony.
Oh, we got a youth.
Yes, it was CORE. It's Congress of Racial Equality. And is she a youth or is she an adult?
That's in the youth.
That's
so
a youth? Okay, so it's 1-1. All right, 1-1.
That's what she representing.
Next question. At the time of her historic bus incident, what was Rosa Parks' occupation? What was Rosa Parks' occupation at the time of the bus incident? I'm gonna let my mic man pick the person.
Housekeeper.
You listened to the wrong answer, baby. All right, 1. Up here in the green.
Seamstress.
She was a seamstress. All right, young people. 1, adults 2. All right, next and final. All right, next and final question.
Ended in a tie.
All right, our next question. Who wrote the best-selling memoir, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings? All right, Miss Pat.
Maya Angelou.
Well, we know the winner for tonight's trivia is the adults.
We still have enough.
So when y'all think we don't know nothing, all right.
A road trip with your family.
The year is 1954 and you're black. Segregation is law in the South and basically practiced everywhere else in America. You're traveling down the famed Route 66 and you've just reached Albuquerque, New Mexico for the first time. There's not another town for miles and you want to pull over and sleep for the night. There are over 100 motels to choose from, but less than 8 will take you in. Picking the wrong one could lead to a humiliating encounter, or worse, a violent one. But there was actually a way to know where you'd be welcome. It was in the Green Book. Americans fell in love with the idea of the road trip in the mid-20th century. A growing middle class meant more people had cars and jobs with paid vacation time. And a newly built interstate highway system meant the country was accessible to a big part of the population for the first time. The open road indicated freedom, and traveling by car reflected Americans' image of themselves: self-sufficient, curious, and spontaneous. It was a way for families to spend time together and see the expansive country they called home, to experience America's cultural and natural diversity. Through the 1950s and 60s, the highway became the most common way for American families to travel. Motels and roadside attractions sprang up along the highway to accommodate travelers needing a place to sleep or eat at any point on their journey. But that freedom didn't extend to all Americans. Black motorists were turned away from the roadside hotels, gas stations, and restaurants that had taken over the American landscape. Some places were so hostile that it was unsafe to even get out of the car. Sundown towns forcibly expelled African Americans at night, sometimes violently. Black families had to take prepared food in case they wouldn't find a restaurant that would serve them, extra gallons of gasoline in case filling stations wouldn't sell to them, and even empty coffee tins in case they couldn't access a bathroom. They carried blankets and pillows, knowing that finding a safe place to sleep could mean camping by the roadside or driving long hours into the night, even though they had money to pay for a hotel. Sometimes that distance was fatal. It was the exact opposite of the spontaneous American road trip. But thanks to a Harlem postal worker turned travel agent, knowing where to go wasn't a total shot in the dark. In 1936, Victor Hugo Green collected information on hotels, restaurants, beauty salons, and mechanic shops that would reliably serve African Americans in New York City. He called his travel guide the Negro Motorist Green Book and began publishing an updated version each year. Using his network at the United States Postal Service, which was one of the largest single employers of African Americans at the time, Green put together detailed information on businesses and private homes that would welcome black travelers. The Green Book eventually grew to cover locations in all 50 states and sold ad space to businesses all over the country. With the help of Esso, now ExxonMobil, as a progressive corporate partner and distributor of the guides, around 15,000 copies of the Green Book started selling each year. Victor Green's once 16-page booklet ballooned to over 100 pages and became a staple item for black families who wanted to participate in the joy of cross-country travel. And it turns out that iconic image of the open road, of freedom and family values, would become an anchor in the civil rights movement. Dr. Martin Luther King even mentions it in his I Have a Dream speech.
We can never be satisfied as long as our body is heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities.
The Civil Rights Act ended legal segregation in 1964, and just 2 years later, the Green Book went out of print. It had become obsolete.
And as the road cut through the broad plains, you felt the tremendous space all around you, the country rolling out to the horizon, and you rolling with it. It was beautiful, and you sort of sensed the real meaning behind the word freedom.
Please turn your attention to the back of the church. Travel back in time to 1955 with Mr. Albert and Mabel Green.
Honey, I have the bags all packed and ready for you to put in the car. I'm excited to be going to the Church of God in Christ Convocation in Memphis, Tennessee. This will be my first time going to Memphis. I can't wait to hear Bishop Charles Mason preach. Did you get enough gas for us to make it from Florida to Birmingham?
Yes, I did. You don't have to worry. I also looked in the Negro Child with the Green Book to get the name and location of the Safe Color service station. I'm excited to go for this trip to Memphis. Our church family has been praying for safe travels for everybody traveling on the dangerous roads. I'm on my way to get the bags now.
Don't forget the Green Book on the end table next to the couch by the telephone.
Okay, got it. It's 10 a.m. We should be filling the roads now if you want to reach Birmingham, Alabama to eat at the Food Bridge Soul Diner in Gas South. Then after, we will check in at the Lorraine Holy Roller Hotel for the convocation and sightsee for a couple of days. Head to the car, lock the house. It's 3:45 p.m. We should be at the service station or restaurant soon.
There's a service station and restaurant that are friendly and will welcome colored people.
Fill her up? Yes. Where are you folks headed? Memphis to our church convocation. Praise God.
That'll be $3.60 for the fill up. All right. You folks should go get some food at the Food for Your Soul Diner next door.
Both of your businesses were highly recommended in the Negro Travelers Green Book.
Thank you.
Yes, with this book, the plan for this trip has been made possible. And also, thank you for your recognition there. You already got your 5, keep the change.
Oh, appreciate you. All right. Be good now.
Let's go eat. I heard your stomach an hour ago.
You're funny, you know that.
Welcome to the Food for Your Soul Diner. Just the two of you?
Yes.
Follow me. Good evening. My name is Carrie Mae. I will be your waitress. How did you hear about our restaurant?
We're on our way to our church convocation, and we purchased the Negro Travelers Green Book to help us travel safely from Florida to Tennessee. We marked certain stops along the way, and we picked your restaurant and the service station next door.
Great. I have heard wonderful things about his book. My family will be using it when we travel to New York this summer. Praying for your safe travel to Tennessee. What would you like to drink?
Thank you for your prayers. I would like a lemonade.
Yes, thank you. Sweet tea, please.
I will be back to take your order.
Wow, there's so many choices.
I was thinking the same thing.
What would you like to order?
I'll take the pot roast and the green beans.
Okay, I'll put this in.
This is a very friendly family.
Here you go, enjoy.
Honey, did you know that Mr. Victor Green is a Negro Postal employee and a travel writer from Harlem, New York City? His book has sold over 15,000 copies.
No, I didn't. That's wonderful. I'm grateful to Mr. Green for taking the time and solving this problem. Negroes traveling safe on the roads is important. We have the right to be treated with respect as humans. This book allows us to bypass some of the segregation and wrong treatment in America.
Yes, so my next stop in Memphis to get some rest and enjoy the convocation. There is the Lorraine Holy Roller Hotel. We made it just in time to check in.
There's a parking spot.
Okay, I'll get the bag and I'll meet you inside.
Pretty good, and you?
Blessed. My name is Gertha. And I'll be taking care of you. May I have your names?
Mr. and Mrs. Albert Green.
We have you down to stay with us for 4 days for the Church of God in Christ Convocation. Here's your keys. Enjoy your stay. Let me know if you need anything.
Okay, I got the bags. I'm ready for some sleep. Good morning. How did you sleep?
Good morning. Great. I'm almost ready.
Okay, leave in 10 minutes.
the motherboard of Church of God in Christ. Kids, no gum chewing in your mouth, absolutely no sleeping on the pews. Here they come, working the middle aisleway.
One of our next guests, one of the warmest, and at the same time one of the most dynamic personalities I've ever met. When you hear her, you'll understand why she is the world's greatest gospel singer, Miss Mahalia Jackson.
Something out of my message. Please stand and repeat after me. Let the words of my mouth, the meditation of our heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. In Jesus' name. Amen.
I truly enjoyed our convocation. I'm excited to come back next year. Do you think we could use the Green Book on other trips?
Yes, with the help of Mr. Green's Mr. Green's Traveler's Negro, the Green Book, we made it safely to our destination, and we'll use it for many more trips to come.
Wow, the Green Book is still relevant today. Can you guys believe that there are still some roads that are not safe for Black people in 2020? Now, we will hear of some overlooked inventors over the years by Ms. Deborah Payne.
Everyone, a hand clap. So hard. Amen, amen. And I wanted to talk about some of our overlooked inventors. We heard about Madam C.J. Walker, how she invented the world's first hair straightening formula or the hot comb. But in my research, I found out that the first one to improve the hot comb was Mr. Elroy J. Duncan. He improved and manufactured it in the early 1900s. And after he did that, Annie Malone was the first African American to patent the hot comb. So they were two overlooked people dealing with the hot comb. They said Madam C.J. Walker, she invented the world's first hair straightening formula or the hot comb. But those two people were overlooked because he invented the hot comb and she had the hot comb patent. So even though Madam C.J. Walker had a lot to do with all of the inventions of all the hair care products, I guess she did the hair grease, she did the stick pins, she did the rubber bands, she did a lot of the stuff for Black African American hair. But those two were overlooked for that hot comb. And for the second one was the ironing board. In the late 19th century, Sarah Boone, an African American woman who was born a slave, was one of the first Black women in the U.S. history to receive a patent. The original ironing board was patented in 1858, but by 1892, she improved it. She improved the ironing board with the design that we have today. I imagine the ironing board that was already made was just square board, you know, and it was a brown board, and I imagine it probably ripped up some of our clothes or whatnot when they ironed on it, but she improved it. She made it smooth, and the iron board that we have today with the curve to the front where you can pull the clothes on the iron board, she did that, and it was patented in 1892. And with our home security system, this is another one. Mary Van Britton Brown, in 1966, she devised a unit for her home. Miss Brown, she was home alone a lot due to her husband working out of town. She lived in Queens, New York, which was a very rough place, and she felt unsafe. So she came up with this device to make her feel safe. She wanted to know if someone opened that door or if someone came in that window, she would hear a chime. So she invented something that would make that noise when those items were opened. So she was the first one to devise our home system. So that was really, really nice. That was intriguing to me because I never knew that. And with the next one was our traffic lights. With just an elementary school education and a son of a slave, Garrett Morgan came up with several inventions like the sewing machine, gas mask, and others. These were a lot of inventions that he did that was never talked about, you know? But his most influential invention was the improved traffic light. So that means that the light was already done. Before there was only 2-light system, but he improved it with the 3rd light. Could you imagine having 2 lights right now, a red and a green light? Right. I imagine that there were so many car accidents still, because once that light changed, it just changed to red, and so now you're trying to stop, you know, before you know you can hit the other person. But he decided to put in a yellow light, which was a caution light. And that light comes on to let you know, okay, it's time for you to stop. You know, some of us still running. But he put it there to caution us so that we can stop. You know, come on, let's give him a hand for that. That was a blessing. That was a blessing. So he was patented for that. And our refrigerated trucks, we owe this invention to Frederick McKinney Jones. He had more than 60 patents on his life. Could you imagine that? He had more than 60 patents. That's a lot of patents. I mean, how many of you today got one? He had 60. He received his patent for the refrigerated truck in 1940 and co-founded the U.S. Thermo Control Company, which now is called the Thermo King. It helps preserve blood, food, and supplies during the war. So when you're riding down the road and you see those refrigerated trucks carrying our food to the different grocery stores, carrying the blood to the hospitals, you know, carrying things that needs to be frozen, remember, Frederick McKinney Jones, he did that. He did that. And come on, give him a hand. Yeah. And the last one I had was automatic elevator doors. Now that was really intriguing to me. These doors were invented by Alexander Miles in 1887, where he took out a patent. Before automatic doors, people had to manually shut both shaft and elevator door before riding. This was very dangerous and led to many accidents. After Mr. Miles almost fatally fell down the shaft himself, he took it upon himself to develop a solution. So therefore, when we walk to those elevator doors and they open up automatically, Mr. Alexander Miles, he did that. Come on, give him a hand, because he did that. Amen. Amen. So when you go to those doors and those doors are open, remember Alexander Miles did that. When we see those refrigerated trucks riding down the road, remember Frederick McKinney Jones, he did that. When we see those traffic lights, when you leave out of here and you go to that traffic light and that yellow light come up, remember, Garrett Morgan, he did that. Amen. When you put that security system in your home and it makes you feel safe, remember, Mary Van Britton Brown, she did that. Yeah. Amen. And remember, when you get on that ironing board and you iron your clothes, remember Sarah Boom, she did that. And remember the hot comb. Madam C.J. Walker, she had a big part to do with that. But Annie Malone and Mr. Elroy J. Duncan, they did that. Come on, give it a hand.
As you have seen, there has been a lot of wrong things done. This Summer Olympics, 1968 and 2016 NFL protest was a way we were silent but meaningful.
During the medal ceremony in the Olympic Stadium in Mexico City, Mexico, October 16, 1968, two African-American athletes, Tommy Smith and John Carlos, each raised a black fist while standing on the podium as the stadium played the national anthem. Smith and Carlos both won a gold and bronze medal in the 200-meter event of the 1968 Summer Olympic Games. They did this in protest to what the injustices that the black people were facing each and every day in America. Now, almost 50 years later, Colin Kaepernick is making the same statement by kneeling for the same injustices. He fights for better education, equal justice in the court system, and to end police brutality and killings by law enforcement. This is why we raise our fists and take a knee. It has nothing to do with the U.S. flag or our troops. I'm John Carlos.
I am Colin Kaepernick.
I'm Tommy Smith.
The 1970s was a time more soulful, dance, shows, and TV sitcoms. Please enjoy.
Now introducing youth empowerment, sports, and music from the 1970s.
Hello everyone, my name is Jim Brown. I was born February 17th, 1936. I was in the NFL since 1957 to 1965. I was known as one of the greatest football players of all time. I was in the Football Hall of Fame since 1971, and I found myself in several movies such as Slaughter, Black Gun, Hard Way to Read, and I found myself also in a TV show called Chips. And I am Jim Brown.
Hi, my name is Michael Jackson, and I'm 15 years old. And me and my brothers had a group called the Jackson 5. In 1970, I was a team idol, and I'm singing I Want You Back. My name is Michael Jackson.
Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. The hands can't touch, but the hands can see. I am Muhammad Ali. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky on January 17, 1942. I started training for boxing at age 12. I won the heavyweight championship at 22 years old in 1964. I refused to get drafted in the military for the Vietnam War. I was soon arrested and guilty for draft evasion and was stripped from my boxing titles. I appealed to the Supreme Court, which overturned my conviction. I was considered one of the world's greatest boxers in all time. I am Muhammad Ali.
Hi, my name is Jenny Jackson, and my birthday is May 16, 1966, and at this time I'm 53 years old. My brothers, the Jackson 5, were a little famous. At 7 years old, I performed in Las Vegas. In 1976, I starred as Penny in the sitcom Good Times. In 1977, and my net worth is now 190 million.
Music and sports.
The 1970s marked the beginning of the post-civil rights movement. During this time, many federal acts of legislation were established protecting all rights of Americans. Specifically during this time period, African Americans made great strides in things like politics and business-related things.
In the 1970s, the Chicago 7 were freed of charges after a riot in 1968.
In 1972, the first National Black Convention was held in Gary, Indiana.
In 1972, Shirley Chisholm ran for president. By the early 70s, the advance of the civil rights movement had combined to rise the feminist movement to create an African American women's movement. Shirley of the New York became a national symbol of both movements to the first major party of African Americans, the first female candidate for president of the U.S.
April 8, 1974, Hank Aaron is 715 home run to become the all-time leading hitter of home runs. He was the best baseball player in the U.S.
In 1976, Barbara Jordan was the first African American woman to deliver the keynote at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago.
In 1977, Andrew Young was sworn in as the first African American to become ambassador to the United Nations.
In the 1970s, there was a show called Sanford and Son. Of course, I'm Sanford, and I'm the king of the junkyard.
I am the handsome son of Lamar.
Yeah, this is my son, you big dummy.
And I'm Esther.
Uh-oh.
And I'm Esther, the beautiful.
Everybody say black is beautiful, but when they saw your film, they said, hold it.
Right, don't talk about my film like that. You have inner.
You have liver pitted in your face. 70s, one of the groundbreaking shows was Good Times. I am Mrs. Florida Evans.
That's my queen right there. I am the no-nonsense father, James Evans.
I'm the intelligent and pro-black son, Michael. Yeah. Black power. I am the artiste and the ladies' man, JJ. God Almighty.
One of the sitcoms showed, even if you don't have enough money, you still have enough love.
Drop the money.
Who remember those sitcoms? Y'all know y'all aging right, so I'm just saying. All right, we are trend-setting, barrier-breaking type of race. I bet we can even invent a tracking system. Introducing Miss Gladys Mae West.
My name is Gladys Mae West. I am an African American. I was born in 1930 in Southern Virginia in Dougherty County, a rural county, south of Richmond. My family was a farming family. My mother worked in a tobacco factory, and my father was a farmer who also worked for the railroads. I realized at an early age that I did not want to work in a tobacco factory or field like the rest of my family, and I decided that education would be my only way out. I realized this to be true as I got more educated and went to higher grades. My high school was even offering a full ride scholarship to Virginia State University to the top 2 students of each graduating class. I saw this as an opportunity to experience something better, but I knew I had to work extra harder than the other students, and I did just that. I graduated high school in 1948 with the highest academic achievement in my class. When it was time for me to go to college, I was unsure what college major to pursue at VSU because I had excelled in all of my subjects. But I was encouraged to take math or science because of their difficulties, so I chose to study mathematics. I also became a member of the Alpha Kappa sorority and graduated in 1952 with a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics. In 1956, I was hired to work at the Naval Welfare Center in Dalhousie Green, Virginia. I was a programmer for the Naval Welfare Center in Dalhousie Green, Virginia. I was known for my contribution to the mathematics modeling of the shape of the Earth and my work on development of satellite geodesy models that were eventually incorporated into the global positioning system known as the GPS. I was one of the key figures behind the GPS invention for a long time. I helped develop the GPS technology through mathematics by collecting and processing data from the satellite, using it to determine our exact location. These were the information that would go on to help develop the GPS in the future. I had no idea that my hard work will impact the world for decades to come. So when you're using your GPS on your smartphone, please remember me, Gladys Mae West.
Are y'all having a great time? All right. Now, we will have a song by Miss India Ari, a speech by Mr. Floyd Mayweather, a dance, and a solo by Lazaria.
Is that India? What happened to her hair? Is that India? What happened to her?
Is that trendy? What did she do with her hair?
Little girl with the present girl. 18 I got a Jerry girl. 13 when I got a relaxer. I was a source of so much laughing. 15 when it all broke up. 15 when I went on that.
At the turn of the century, it's time for us to redefine who we be. You save love like South African beauty. Got it on lock like Bob Marley. You can walk it straight like Oprah trees. Now what's on your head, so underneath the say, I am not my head. I am not your skin. I am not your expectations. No, no. I am not my head. I am not the skin. I am the soul that lives within. Does the wear on my hair make me a better person? Does the wear on my hair make me a better friend? Does the wear on my hair determine my integrity? I am expressing my creativity. Breast cancer, chemotherapy took away her crown of glory. She promised God that she was to survive. She will enjoy every day of her life. On national television, her diamond eyes are sparkling. Oh, how you like a full moon shining, singing out to the whole wide world like, hey, I am not my head. I am not the skin. I am not your expectations. No, no. I am not my head. I am not the skin. I am the soul that lives within. I am not my head. I am not the skin. I am not your expectations. No, no. I am not my head. I am not the skin. I am the soul that lives within.
I'm Floyd Mayweather Jr. I was Boxer of the Year award in 1998 and 2007. I won boxer pound to pound. I won pound to pound boxer. I won pound to pound boxer in 1998 and 2007. My record tells it all. 50 wins and no defeats. 0 to hero. Check that again. Lord Mayweather Jr.
Hey, I got the power. I got the power. I got the power with me. I got the power. I got the power. I got the power with me. This how euphoria, feeling so glorious, forever victorious. Heart of a champion. I got the power with me. Go get the championship rings. I got the power with me. This ain't 8 ball, this just fake, dog. I just played my cards, I just prayed in stars. I had faith, dog, against a great odds. I can't take the glory, this came straight from God. I just made a play like OBJ, so really this one here gon' make the top 10. It's the moment I've been waiting for, so may the memory never be forgotten. Unlike the game on the locksmith, we breaking out this colossus. I feel like this is my time, this the need for me to shine, I promise. Still on the court after midnight, putting up shot and shot. Working my wrist, cracking overtime. This ain't happen overnight. Hard working, discipline. Get my time with the green mile. Now ball out the gym, way above the rim. Shoot the space, I'm ascending. Now drop the beat, let's make history. I got the power. I got the power. I got the power with me. I got the power. I got the power. I got the power with me. This how euphoria, feeling so glorious, forever victorious. Heart of a champion. I got the power with me. Go get the championship rings. I got the power with me.
actually had a little help. So we thank her, and we thank Ms. Danielle for giving us this opportunity last minute. Because originally, we weren't supposed to dance, so we had to make something up real quick. So I just thank y'all for listening and watching, and thank y'all for being here.
The atmosphere is changing. Nothing stays the same. Heaven is waiting for the mention of the name. The spirit is moving, burning like a flame, healing the broken by the one that we proclaim. Raise it up, fill the sky. Chains will fall, mountains move, we lift him high. Speak the name above all other names. Speak the name the wind and waves obey. All of heaven's coming down, fill the earth with the sound of the name of Jesus. Gather all who want, hostages of shame, miracles unfolding at the mention of the name. Our darkness is fleeing, mercy raining down, healing waters flowing as our lips make the sound. So raise it up, fill the sky. Chains will fall, mountains move, we lift him high. Speak the name above all other names. Speak the name the wind and waves obey. All of heaven's coming down, fill the earth with the sound of the name of Jesus. Speak the name of Jesus.
Give her another clap. All right, now we will have a tribute to Adarius Williams.
Was a part of New Journey. And for many of you that came to a lot of our programs, he was always there. Whenever Devontae would be up here messaging through his words, Adarius would be almost like his hype man. Adarius would be the one that, he would be the first one that's up here jumping, and everybody else would feed off of Adarius. Adarius left us last year, and him being a part of New Journey For me, it was like losing a grandson, because that's what everybody called me, granddaddy. And when I got that news that Darius was gone, it was a gut shot. I couldn't believe it. Young man, lot of talent. When we was at his services, all of the acting accolades that he had got through high school, to me, it was almost like looking at possibly the next Wesley Snipes, a Denzel, because this young brother could act. He got a lot of his acting right here doing our skits in our Black History programs. That's why I tell my kids, when we do these little skits, you never know. It may be the foundation that put that taste in your mouth to be an actor. A Darius, gone too soon. But what is done is done. And you'll always have a place in my heart, based on the simple fact that it was a part of the journey. Always rest in heaven. Darius, we love you.
Now we've come to the part of the program where I get to introduce the visionaries of this Black History program, my daddy and my sister, Cassell Winter and Danielle Yarbrough. Give it up, everybody, stand up. Give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up, give it
First of all, I want to thank God for allowing us to see another year. You know, so we can tell you all our story. We put out a lot of information that a lot of us didn't know. One quick thing, Josiah Henson, that was the guy that I spoke on. But did you know Matthew Henson discovered the North Pole is related? Did you all know that Cookie, that played in Empire, is related? So that's something that when I researched him, you know, hit that family tree and saw her name, his name. So, you know, I just want us to understand that we are rich when it comes to our story. Henry Box Brown, this brother had a plan. You know, hey, I gotta get out of here. But what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna FedEx myself. You know, I'm gonna FedEx myself to Pennsylvania. You know, the GPS lady. Everybody use them. I'm lost. Oh, put the address in. There you go. The people that Miss Deborah spoke about. You know, these refrigerated trucks, going to the elevator and hoping you don't fall down or whatever. You know, there's a lot of, you know, our stories out there. To my babies back there. Look. Appreciate you all. But I want you all to do something. don't use this right here for a lot of nonsense. This is a lot of information. That brother that I spoke on, I typed his name up, boom, there it is. Use this for more things than what you all, research your history or your story. That's all I want you all to do. Use it. I tell Trinity all the time, Granddaddy, what's this? Girl, you better get out my face, go get on this laptop and look it up. It's like that when we was in school, we didn't have this. Come on now, it's right here in your hand. Use it. I love you all for coming, and all the new people that participated. Hey, y'all did a heck of a job. I thank you all. And that being said, we get to the script writer because every year we put this together, but she put it on paper. You know, so hey, I'm gonna give it to my daughter. Love you, baby.
All right. Well, thank y'all for coming out. Y'all give yourself a round of applause. I want to thank my pastor for allowing us to use the church. Y'all clap it up for him and his absence. He's out of town on duty. I want to thank my church family. Where y'all at? My church family. If you're looking for a good church home, come and sit on these red pews. We got you. I want to thank Youth Empowerment Project. I thank y'all. Thank you, Nate. Fellow CEO, thank you. Love entrepreneurs, y'all. Love entrepreneurs. All right, and last but not least, New Journey. Y'all. My daddy gave me in my ear, tell me what to do like he always do. It's all good. I just follow the lead. Okay, Dad, what we doing? Because you won't go wrong when you listen to your parents.
That's right.
Hey, redo. You won't go wrong when you listen to your parents. Alright? So don't get it twisted. Miss Danielle do what she do, but I'm over, okay, Dad, what we doing? Okay, Dad, what we doing? He always make me work hard. So what I was about to say is New Journey, and thank y'all and my church family. Thank y'all for working so hard. Thank y'all for working. Where my motherboard at? What's that motherboard? That's right, motherboard. Yeah, so I'm gonna have y'all come up so we can do our final about everybody that participated in the program. We got to get y'all to come up. Last but not least, Miss Nikki Carr up top. Let me tell y'all, and my brother, hold up, let me back up too, because you know, when you do stuff, you don't always remember everything, and you be like, ooh, I need somebody to record. Ooh, I need somebody to do the sound. Ooh, I need, so these people stepped up. We're here early. My brother rigged up something over there because he's MacGyver. Y'all say, hey, MacGyver. That's MacGyver over there. And my husband, Juan, y'all bro, that's always loaning me out to everybody. He loans me out. And Hunter, thank you, son. Wherever you are, they loan me out. They do, y'all. They loan me out. What I mean by that is I'm everywhere. I'm doing 5 million things. That's what I mean. They loan me out to everybody. So y'all come on up, please. Thank y'all so much. I'm gonna do a bow. Now come on. Move your feet. And y'all clap it up for Miss Ashley, which is Mr. Nate. His right hand. Y'all come on up. Nate and Ashley. I thank you for Tashara Hunter, which is my sister. Y'all come on, shift. Did I forget anybody? Oh, hold up. Y'all saw them USA jogging suits that had the Olympic thing on there. My sister over there, Miss Courtney, she did those jogging suits for me, y'all. She do t-shirts, painting, she do shoes, she do everything. And she also deliver mail, so you know she ain't no joke. Who else am I forgetting there? Help me stay on track. Who else am I forgetting as far as... Oh yeah, thank you, Miss Stephanie, for being our usher. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you to everybody for coming out and giving of your Saturday to hang out with some wonderful people. Motherboard, y'all say hey, y'all. Y'all say hey, Motherboard. They keep us in check. That's Motherboard. All right, yeah, New Journey, Anointed Word, Family Worship Center. Y'all wave to everybody. Tell them thank you. Take a bow. Now, while they doing that, I want to say one more thing before my daddy closes out. Okay. All right. So the Green Book skit. This is why it's good to talk to your parents and know about your history. Because I know y'all probably saw the Green Book, the movie. Who saw that movie? Raise your hand. Okay, good. You ain't missing nothing. I'm gonna tell you this. I saw the movie, and so, but I didn't know it was nothing as rich as it really was. So we're sitting at the table, me and my dad, and we brainstorming about what we're gonna do. So he's throwing different things out, and he starts to tell me about the Green Book and what the Green Book really was. So I wrote that skit. I wrote it based on him telling me, hey, we used to use it for this, we used to use it for that. I said, oh no, we're not just gonna throw a video up and be done. We're gonna actually show what we had to go through as a people and how to get somewhere. And you know what was cool about it? When I looked in the book, I saw the Wells Built Museum that's right here in Orlando. And it was in the book as a place to go and sleep. So when you listen to people, it'll pull your wheels to say, oh, let me find out about this and let me find out about that. So that's how we got the skit and all of that stuff. It's just him talking and then I saw it writing. So that's how it works. Thank you to Miss Rodina. Y'all clap it up for my sister. She was in the back with the wardrobe, clothes going here, clothes going there. Like, come on, get out. So she had my back as far as the changing and all that stuff. So I hope I did not miss anybody. If I did, please forgive me and put it on my dad. All right, so y'all take y'all final bow. Take your bow again. Thank y'all so much. Y'all be blessed, and we'll see you next year. Oh, Mr. Hold tight. Mr. Lorenzo, can you pray us out? Can you pray us out, Mr. Lorenzo? Oh, no.
Listen up. First of all, what a blessing they've been to us. I really appreciate you. Love you, bro. I learned more about history than I ever learned. I went 4 years in high school. I learned more history tonight than I ever learned. But that's not a lot. I mean, they help every year in summer school too in history. Learn more than that. Tell the truth. Oh, yeah. But anyway, Father God, we thank you for your grace, your mercy, and your favor, Father. We thank you for the blessing that you've given us tonight, Father. We thank you for just being here as family and friends, Lord. We enjoyed the program. You put it on. You anointed it, Father. And I ask that people just really search their history and realize we've come a long way. Like I said before, we got a long way to go. And I just want to thank you, Father, for the family that put it on. Brother Maurice and his family, Father, I ask you to bless them and continue to give them the anointing word to continue to do this every year. Amen. Amen.
Praise the Lord, everybody.
I think that's CJ.
Thank y'all. Thank you. Hey, outstanding. Love you, man. Good job.
And then no one else touches his head, you wanna call? Let's go. Say it.
Thank you, baby.
And you were just awesome.
Oh, I enjoyed it.